Welcome back to another episode of the Hodge-Cast. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. You could argue the current state of the UK, we're on the latter part of that statement. But here to unpack it in its entirety, I'm joined by the leader of UKIP, Nick Tenconi. Nick, welcome to the show, mate. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So we're filming in Liverpool. Obviously, you've travelled up. What brings you up to... I know you're not doing something in Liverpool apart from this, but what brings you up north?
Well, obviously, the pleasure of your company, Dan, and thank you very much for inviting me. And then tomorrow, I've been called into action in Lincoln to lead a march and speak at a demo filled with concerned citizens and patriots. Usual stuff, enough is enough. We want our country back. But my message is to actually tell the people, whilst your outrage is justified and warranted, it's all about understanding how we take our country back. And then after that, it's the UKIP monthly mass deportations demo, which is happening in Sheffield, not far from here. So we've got a full 3 days, which is so blessed, and it's lovely to be invited and wanted also. And then obviously on Sunday, I'll be paying my respects, Remembrance Sunday, which typically that'll be in central London.
I can't wait for this interview already. We're off to a flying start there, Nick. But before we kind of unpack who you are and what you stand for and UKIP as a whole, we ask all our guests this question when they're making the first appearance, and that is, what does challenge mean to Nick Tenconi?
I didn't know that you asked that to all the people that you interview, but it is a good question. Challenge means to me risk. It means adapt and overcome. It means inspiration. It means motivation. It means opportunity. It means a chance at growth. It means a chance at pain and suffering. It means a chance to be bigger, stronger, faster, more intelligent, smarter, wiser. In life, one must choose between boredom and suffering. And the Christian worldview, indeed my worldview, is that we choose suffering every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So the word challenge, I think it means an awful lot, but good question. What it means to me is it's so blessed, and thanks be to God for those challenges, because that's how we get the best out of people. And we have got a lot of challenges in the UK right now, and I've been called into action. I love challenges. I also love to fight as well.
Yeah. Well, that'll segue quite nicely, because we want to kind of just give a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of your background, how you became to get involved in politics. I didn't know this, and then until obviously we agreed to do this interview. You have a fitness background, which is sort of similar to myself. So give us a little bit of an overview, Nick, of the fitness background and then your transition into politics.
Certainly. So at school, I went to a school where I was very lucky. Every single sport was played. I was in the first 15 or the first 11, hockey, rugby, football, etc. We were, as a family, we would play tennis. We were a golfing family, swimming. We were always doing something at the weekends, after school club, hobbies, etc. I was very lucky with the school that I went to, and I found that in the classroom, the way that we were taught, it's not that it's not good or I didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to be on the rugby field playing rugby, or on the football field playing football. I wanted to be physically active, but I was more than happy to cook the books. Just wasn't my preference. And then if you fast forward through to late mid-20s, I suppose, university, I found that running was best for me. There was some weight training in there, and young men being fascinated by the gym. Maybe they've seen some movies or they've read some books, etc. Size and strength. But I've always had a natural pull towards the physical, combat as well. I started boxing when I was 17. So by my early 20s, after university, I'd been a club level athlete and all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of people, that's the story they've got. They didn't earn any money out of it or go further with it. Hobby, passion territory. And then out of university, I was in a blue chip company in Mayfair in London, which was a fantastic experience. It was one of the best. It took a long time to get there after graduating. It wasn't a fun year. That was in 2006. But once I did finally get a job somewhere, I realised I was commuting for 2 hours from the home counties to get into central London. I was working from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., which was in IT recruitment, brutal KPI and metric and environment. And then I realized I was going to do an hour and a half, 2 hours commute home. And I realized all this very quickly. And I thought, well, that seems silly. So after work or before work, I'm going to use that time to train. And then what the mindset's going to be, whilst I sit in this cage and I work and I earn, but also there were months where it was very hard to earn and it was a very difficult sector as well. I would find meaning and value by saying, right, well, I'm getting up now at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning to go and commute a ridiculously long way, which I think is a waste of life, into the rat race, into a job which, yeah, great people, great opportunity, but again, whatever. And I will add meaning and value by essentially executing my physical training regime, which I decided would be hypertrophy, muscle and fitness category, strength training, that type of thing. And I never lost sight of the cardio aspect either. So it sounds bizarre, but to get me through the day, getting up and going to train first thing in the morning, that's your 5 a.m. stuff, and then you're in the gym by 7, or at the end of the working day, that would give me purpose. And I thought that seems sensible. And if we journey back to my late teens, for example, if I was ever anxious or depressed, or if I felt like I was falling down, or every guy said, oh, maybe I haven't got any mates, or I feel lonely, or I feel isolated, or maybe you've been betrayed, had your heart broken, I would naturally go for a run. I would naturally go to the boxing gym and box, etc. So the inertia's been there from day one to essentially use what God has given me as a way of understanding more about duty, learning more about following through and commitment. And I don't care if it's raining, I don't care if it's cold, I'm going for that run. I've been given this body and I'm going to look after it and I'm going to protect it. But the main reason why I started the fitness business that I started was because in 2006, circa 2007, when I got the job in central London, I needed something else to get me through it all. I couldn't just get up, go to work, come home and just repeat. So I did corporate years selling various different sales roles, etc., new business development. And then by 2012, I realized that after, again, 6 or 7 years of doing that, it was time to take all my knowledge about building sales pipelines and new business development and convert my hobby, which had always been my go-to, into an actual business. So it's not hard to get your level 2 and level 3 PT qualifications, as I'm sure you know. And then all of a sudden, you're still living in the gym, you're still living for training, only this time you're now educating clients on how to reduce body fat and feel less awful about yourself when you're in front of your partner or in front of the mirror. And then that basically, in this day and age with opioid addiction and anxiety and depression, automatically, if you're good at what you do, makes you a lifestyle health coach, macro coach, micronutrition coach, etc., as well as the actual gym routine stuff as well. So yeah, it was living and breathing it for a very long time. And then in 2013, thought, right, let's make a career out of it.
Fantastic. And what the whole time you're talking, though, you've kind of laid the foundation for this discipline and work ethic that you've obviously transferred that into your political endeavours, which I want to kind of segue to. How did you transition from, because one could look at politics and fitness, the opposite ends of the spectrum. So how did you find that path?
Yeah, it's difficult for me because interviewers also, they want to know what makes me tick and they want to understand how it all works. So I kind of have to explain the hardship. You know, when I was depressed, when I was down, I would put on boxing gloves and go in the boxing ring. When I didn't want to do the push-ups, I did the push-ups. When I didn't want to do the leg raises or the pull-ups, I did the leg raises and the pull-ups. When I didn't want to go out and it's freezing cold and wet, etc., my inertia told me that I had to go and fight. I had to go and overcome this. And it was through physical education that I did that. Now link that to my university degree. Like all millennials who had half a brain and A-levels, you went to university and you picked a university and you went and did a degree. Was it vocational? No. Did you know what you were doing? Not necessarily. And I chose politics, philosophy and international relations. And I got into a Times top 20 university. And for social sciences, it was incredibly high ranking. So in terms of all that duty and discipline and learning and physical education and fact-finding and understanding, both in terms of my athletic endeavors and my physical education and my university degree, 20 years later, depending on which markers we're using, I would be leading the country back to greatness, back to being Great Britain, to restoring order, delivering justice to our most marginalized communities, and of course, justice for our girls, reinstating Christianity back into the heart of government, and issuing mass deportations and remigration. Now, how on earth does that, how can that happen? How can that turn around? How can we morph from being an activist with Turning Point UK into leader of a national party, into producing arguably an enormous amount of support up and down the country for our message and for my leadership? Everything I do is discipline-based. Everything I do is duty-based. And thanks be to God, because I think a lot of that can be learned, but I think a lot of it, in terms of what I'm talking about now, I think you're born with that. There's something, people might even say there's something wrong with you. What are you talking about? You meal prepped for 10 years and you dieted 6 days a week and you only had treat day on Sunday, and you never, you know, wake up in the morning, you've been out with the guys, a few jars, etc. You're in there doing squats, they're in bed dying. What are you talking about? This is not natural. This is not healthy. Tell me about it. But there you go. Thanks be to God. Here we are. And what you learn, I know a lot of your viewers can relate, you can relate. When you're in business to consumer, B2C, and you're in sales, you're there to deliver for the customer. And there's that training as well, obviously, which we don't need to go into, is what it is. But there's that element as well of always delivering and never letting the customer down, because you live and die by how your customer treats you that day, etc. It's brutal when you lose customers, etc. So if you pile it all together, you can make sense of it. But also, I do think, as a Christian, I would say it's all part of God's plan, and now here we are.
It's interesting, you know, because that would be the philosophy to the norm, let's say, that people would look at someone like yourself and think, he's got to be a little bit crazy for what he's just described there. But you look at some of the most successful people, or, you know, as cliche, the successful people in society, they probably are a little bit unhinged in some capacity. I see that as a good thing, the channeling that unhingedness into a driving force, if you will. I kind of just want to go into UKIP as a whole. Obviously, I want to be able to give you an impartial discussion, but be able to give you a chance to kind of upsell what your brand, as it were. But UKIP, up until you came along, I associated, like I'm sure many of our listeners did, UKIP with Nigel Farage's party. And up until going down the rabbit hole, I wouldn't have been able to name you anyone in between Nigel and your good self, Nick. So, two questions really. One, why was that the case? Or why is your belief that was the case? And two, what's different now you're in charge?
So what's different now is the Tories expelled me because they're liars, deceivers, perverts and degenerates. And the faction of right-wingers that we all know and love, Suella, for example, they're not doing anything within that party. And they know it. It's filled with yellows, it's filled with wets, it's filled with commies, it's filled with liberals. It's not happening. So the whole, you take the country back by working your way up through the Conservative Party was what we all tried to do. And then I get expelled. And my request was that I stand as a candidate, and they're going to say no to that. First joined the Conservative Party when I was 17 years old. Used to hang out with my father in what was called the Con Club, the Constitutional Club, where I'm from in Eastbourne, play snooker, things like that, you know, when half a pint was like £1.50 or whatever it was, etc. So I'm a blue-blooded conservative, small c conservative, and I'm expelled. So that happened. Obviously, UKIP were tracking and tracing me at the time and wanted to rebrand everything. So it goes something like this. When I'm at conferences and when I'm traveling around the world, and you're doing all the small talk with people and the name badge stuff and the networking and the rapport building and the rebuilding of trust, and I go UKIP, everyone's ears pop up. That's powerful. That's important. Now, if you do that with Reform or any other parties outside of Labour and the Conservatives, they're not going to know. They're not going to know, but they know UKIP. So thanks, Nigel, for that. So when I came on board, it wasn't about rebranding the name or the letters. That would be really silly. But it was about rebranding the party in terms of messaging, missions, vision, and the logo. Well, the logo's been done, so that's that. And in terms of the missions, obviously there are 6. For those people that don't know, I suggest please go onto social media or any one of UKIP's social media channels, or go onto the website. They're right there. There's 6 missions. The first one is that we need to start calling out, as part of re-engineering society, the issues of far-left totalitarian propaganda and how that has betray people's minds, emotions, how it can skew people's mindsets and thoughts and the words that are used. We need to close the borders. We need to declare war on radical Islam. We need to begin mass deportations and remigration. We need to call out and educate on issues to do with fatherlessness, godlessness, liberalism, the lie we were all sold, boomer conservatism, etc. We need to reinstate Christianity back into the heart of government. And we need to declare war on vulture capitalism, monopolies, subversives, corporate entities. We're not forgetting about that part. It's not just about people and government, but the corporate entities are parasites. Monopolies, vulture capitalism is a phrase that's used quite a lot, etc. So that's a 30-second of the 6 missions, etc. So why would we ever change the name? This is tactically dangerous. We've changed the missions. We've taken what has always been known as the bad boy of politics, and we've made it useful. Now, people could argue that UKIP was useful from circa 93, and everyone knows the timeline up until 2015. My question is, I'm concerned, has Brexit been done? Has Brexit been done? Now, if you go down the rabbit hole of what's been achieved from Brexit, all people care about is how much does my food bill come to? How much is my gas? How much is my electric? Have we closed the borders? Have we begun mass deportations? In general, most people go, no, 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 no. So someone got rich off of UKIP. Someone did well off of the old UKIP that I'm talking about now. Someone did well. Someone rose to fame. Someone rose to prominence. Someone got a good deal out of it. But you ask any ex-Kipper now, you ask any ex-UKIPper now what they think of Nigel and what happened, that whole thing. They're furious. And that they're brokenhearted because Nigel crashed the party. He burned the boats. It's done. This was after the Brexit vote, but we never got Brexit. Everyone voted for Brexit, voted to close the borders and to begin mass deportations. Or back then, when things were a bit softer and a bit tamer, the Overton window shifted massively. It was to at least have control over our sovereign borders. So the UKIP opportunity, expelled from the Tory party. I was headhunted. I came in. The leader at the time, a lady called Lois, she didn't last. That was like 90 days. Look, things happen. It is also a really tough, stressful role. I mean, I love it. But as we've already discussed.
It's got your work ethic, so it's...
I'm odd. So yeah, lots of things fell into place. And I was deputy and then I was interim. So blessed, amazing. UKIP, the name stays. Why would you ever change that? Think outside the box, people. New missions, as I've surmised. And the vision is to deliver justice to our most marginalised communities, to justice for the girls, as well as a result of the rape genocide in Britain, and begin mass deportations and remigration under the banner of the most successful, notorious, well-known bad boys of politics. Only this time, we're actually doing it with a leader that genuinely cares about its people. It genuinely cares about reinstating Christianity back into the heart of government. It genuinely is fearless in its approach to achieve the blue sky, which is mass deportations and remigration. And I say, Dan, anyone to that says, all right, prove it. Or why you? The rent is due every day on trust, loyalty, and respect. I haven't missed a beat for 15 months. I'm not going to miss a beat when the state comes for me, or the state tries to kill me, or one of my enemies tries to take me out. Until that happens, you're not going to see me miss a beat, because I'm in this for the glory of God. I'm in this for the glory of God. I can't fail. If God is with us, who is against us?
No, exactly. And for those who maybe aren't familiar with yourself, Nick, or they've not got you on social media, touching on to what you said at the start with your work ethic, you listed off your Lincoln, Sheffield, all these places in what, that's 48-hour period. We're in Liverpool now. You put yourself on the front line and you are constant with it. You're constantly churning. And whether people agree with your political stances or not, you can't give you anything but credit and respect on that front. That is a given. So I'm more than happy to give you plaudits on that. Obviously, you've touched on your faith. So I am agnostic. And I'm agnostic in a sense, I don't know. However, there's two things. So I've always gone on record historically to say religion and politics shouldn't come together. However, I do fully appreciate that the United Kingdom is built on Christian culture, belief systems, history. Christianity is embedded in the United Kingdom. So as someone who kind of goes with the notion of keeping religion and politics separate, what could you say? I'm sort of asking this question for the listeners who might have the same mindset as me. Why should now? Obviously, one could argue keeping. So let's use Sadiq Khan, for instance. He uses Islam as a driving force for a lot of his politics, and people would be against that. In the same regard, someone might say you're using Christianity. I'm not making a comparison to you and Sadiq by any stretch, but what would your argument be, or what would your pushback be to people who have that belief of why should we champion this guy? He's still including religion in his mantra.
Sure. So what we must do is we must unharden the heart, lower the fists, and realise that we were sold a massive lie, which is a product and main causality lies with boomer conservatism and boomer conservative mindsets, liberal mindsets, individualistic mindsets, libertarianism, boomer conservatism, liberalism. It's all part of the same pot. I'm all right, Jack, and I'm pulling the ladder up behind me and I'm bolting the doors. I've got my end. So that's that kind of thing. This is totally unacceptable. This is not good. Look at how where we've landed within a society. Part of that liberal boomer conservative mindset, it is difficult to surmise, but part of that is godlessness. Godlessness is one of the number one causes when we look at society and we think about illegal immigration and we think about Marxists trying to trans our kids and we talk about corruption within government. And we talk about the unholy alliance of Islamists and communists who will try and wipe each other out, but for now they're useful to each other. When we look at the ills within society, we deindustrialize Britain, we deindustrialize our glorious northern mill towns and mining towns and areas throughout the country, etc. When we look at our problems, what I think is if we turn back to where we came from, if we go back to the beginning and turn back to where we came from, generally speaking, going back to the beginning is tactically clever. Now, in terms of winning over agnostics and those of the secular worldview, you're talking about people that love their abortions. You're talking about people that love their freedom, but not freedom on steroids. Our argument is that culture runs downstream from politics. So we've turned our backs on God, we've turned our backs on the church, we've turned our backs on our faith. The Islamic Caliphate is winning and is going to win. It has two-tier policing and two-tier justice because culture runs downstream from politics. That's why you see the halal stores popping up, the halal section, in Tesco's everywhere. That's why, because there's demand for it. And they demand and they demand and they demand. And the government goes, oh, look, because they're buyers, right? Everyone's got a pound sign above their head. So what can we do for these people? Oh, it turns out they're actually, Islamists are very violent, very radical. We might be better pander to them as well. So you start to understand culture runs downstream from politics. So to your secular, agnostic and atheist brigade, I'm not appealing to them. I'm not asking them. I'm telling them. If they want to jump on the team for the big win, become a member, support, endorse, or even at the ballot box, vote. By all means, vote. But there are 24 million Protestants in this land, 4 million Catholics, and few hundred thousand Orthodox. That's more than enough to achieve the Christian bloc vote. So the question is interesting, but it needs to be dissected. Am I pandering to liberal votes? Am I pandering to those people that are never going to vote for me? Am I pandering to the centre, middle, liberal ground, which is where you see Nigel Farage say, mass deportations is a political impossibility. Oh, he seems like a moderate guy. We'll vote for him. Absolutely not. We're taking our country back. No diplomacy, no surrender. So it's a really important point. What about the secular brigade? What about the agnostic brigade? You know what, Dan? When the Islamic Caliphate becomes so emboldened with all the mayors and the councillors and the Islamic State and the halal and the Sharia, guys like you, good people like you, up and at fathers, those of you, when it comes to your door, you'll wish you had Christianity back into the heart of government because the Holy Crusades was fought by Christian knights. And this was always in defense of the Holy Land or to repel Islamist aggression, for example. So am I concerned with trying to win the vote of the secular, agnostic, atheist brigade? No. Are they waking up of their own accord and volition and running back to the churches? Yes, great news for me. I'm interested in the Christian demographic, whether you call that baptized, confirmed, on the journey, dabbling in and out of it, etc. You've said yourself you're not atheist, you're agnostic. I'm interested in that segment of society which goes, do you know what? I really don't want the Islamic State. I don't want the Islamic Caliphate. well, if you want to fight the Islamic Caliphate, which is winning and is going to win, you're going to need to get on your knees and you're going to need to pray to the one true living God, Jesus Christ, and the Trinity. You're going to have to say, we got it wrong. I'm sorry. And for the secular brigade that say no, you'll get radical Islam. You will get radical Islam. So best of luck with that one.
No, it's powerful. And I kind of wanted to ask you that because obviously I have said publicly in relation to keep religion, politics separate, but I also fully subscribe to you need to have that, whether you're agnostic like me, you need to have that driving force and you need something behind it because it's operated like a business. Like you mentioned, everyone's got a price, a pound sign above their head. So I do like the way you articulated that, and hopefully people can hear the way you've articulated it and hopefully take on board what you said for all the secular brigade out there, including myself. I kind of wanted, you touched on the, obviously, radical Islam. Yeah, something happened to you recently where was it a rally you was organising, you got banned, but then, I'll tell you what, you explain what happened just in case I miss anything.
It's very complicated as well, Dan. So yeah, probably for the best. But I've been doing it for the last couple of weeks, so it just rolls off the tongue now. UKIP mass deportations tour, Whitechapel earmarked, liaising with the Met Police since August. Everyone knows the score. Every form's been signed. Zoom meeting. 15 of them in that meeting, all the different types of brass in there, etc., etc. Guys, we want to come. We want to march through mass deportations and remigration, anti-radical Islam, anti-Islamism, reject extremism, reject the Islamic Caliphate. We are sending people who do not belong here home. Stand with us in a heavily, notoriously colonized area. The fact that it's with Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, this is not relevant. Stand with us against radical Islam. Stats and statistics don't lie and facts aren't racist. We know what they are. 57 of the 80 prescribed terrorist organizations on MI5's little watch list are Islamic. Out of the 45,000 on individuals on MI5's terror watch list, 40,000 are Islamic or Islamist, radical Islamist, for example. Muslims represent in 6% in the population, but 18% in prison. Now, I could go on and on with regards to the stats. You try telling that to Islamic communities, be they Muslim or Islamist, they don't want to hear it. They can do no wrong because they think they're the chosen people. But it's interesting though, because all religions say that. But it's actually, if you deep dive that, that's actually not true at all. Especially in Christianity, for example, we don't believe that we're the chosen. We believe in the one true faith, the one true God, for example. So who's going to reject my message, right? Stand shoulder to shoulder. We all take Whitechapel back against extremism. The Metropolitan Police cancelled our march due to threats of violence and violent disorder. Interesting.
What was their evidence on that?
Interesting, quite. From which side? From whom? The patriotic right, because under my command, my march, that's not happening. You do that in the crowds. We've got security in place and stewarding in place. I'll do it. You'll answer to me. That's not happening on the patriotic right. You are on your best behavior. We believe in self-defense and we're very, very good at it. But aggression and violence, no, absolutely not, ever. So let's journey back to the Met Police's comment. Sorry, violent disorder and unrest. Sorry, from who? From which side? Now let's journey forward. Let's see what happened afterwards. You've seen the same footage I have. Fighting age men, it's the same old story. Militant black bloc, fighting age men, deliberately covering their faces, screaming Allah Akbar on the streets of Whitechapel, again, in uniform, in rows, in lines, in ranks, all organised, all premeditated as a show of force to say, you're not coming here. I was banned from coming to Whitechapel. My question is, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? I'm not coming anywhere near. I'm complying with law enforcement. They saw it as an opportunity to say, you've been banned because we've pressurized the Met Police, community leaders, councillors, mayors, all colonized because, by the way, the Islamic Caliphate is won politically, but we're going to go on to talk about that. They're winning politically, so we need to do the same. They've leaned on the Met Police, law enforcement, whatever, intelligence services. They've said, look, you bring them here, you're going to have a real problem. The communists do it as well. I've had venues where I'm speaking at, Dan, where I know I've spoken to the bartenders after they've cancelled. They're in floods of tears saying that these lefty lunatics called up saying they were going to bomb the place. We know the tactics that the communists and the Islamists use. So, okay, fine, we don't turn up. So why are they on the streets in black bloc, marching militantly with their Allah Akbar nonsense, for example, et cetera, et cetera? Then afterwards, we've got about a 10-day media storm, which takes us to kind of this time last week when it started to die down, where the nation and all the pundits and the journos, etc., they're rightly outraged. And Suella chimed in, Nigel hijacked my story, bless him, Rupert chimed in. Yeah, they're outraged. These guys wanted to turn up with their anti-extremism message and their patriotic flag waving and their mass deportations of the extremists and of the illegal invaders. Who objects to that? The Islamists in Whitechapel did, and the last bit of the story, the Metropolitan Police clearly now have absolutely no cards left to play. They have no hand left other than to segregate the Christian socially conservative right away from the Islamist community. Today, this is the 6th. I think there's the Aston Villa game today, Tel Aviv Maccabi.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's happening in a few hours down. Look at the situation brewing down there. You've seen the video of the Islamists dressed in black bloc, putting the signs up, colonized Birmingham, just walking around the streets to and putting whatever they signs up, wherever they want, cable tying them. Wait, hang on a minute. Wait, who greenlit that, etc. So the final part of the story is it should be mesmerizing to people and for your audience. The last thing law enforcement now have to do is to segregate socially conservative Christian nationalists who are deeply concerned about the state of their country from Islamist occupied no-go zones. Segregation in 2025 in Britain. That ends, you and I both know, that ends one way.
For those who haven't seen the footage, it's really intimidating. It's really intense. And that's got nothing to do with, religion or anything. It's like you use the phrase, it's militant. It's very, this doesn't look good that this is happening on our streets. Why have we got to the point where this, because the way, the Islamic Caliphate runs is it's almost kind of like the mafia style in the States. Why have they got such leverage over everything? And why have we, because surely this isn't the whole race card debacle. I know that might have started it, but why have they got such power and control over the people who we're supposed to look up to protect us, which clearly aren't doing?
So I always distinguish between Muslims and Islamists. But my patience is running out. Muslims meaning peaceful, moderate. They reject the caliphate. They kind of do as they're told, but they don't tend to adopt the jihadi, militant, Islamist mindset or rhetoric or whatever. My patience is running out, especially after the trap we laid for them at Whitechapel, which was just as much as a trap for law enforcement as well. Very silly people. So I still to this day, as a socially conservative Christian nationalist, I differentiate between Muslims and Islamists. Now, let's be absolutely clear. I am going to answer the question through the frame of talking about Islamists and Islamism. Once you understand, once you've hung out with Arab Muslims, Saudi Muslims, Pakistani Muslims, Bangladeshi Muslims, Syrian Muslims, Kuwaiti Muslims, once you've understood, you can read the Quran if you like, you can read the Hadiths and the Surahs if you want, etc. Go for it. I'd rather you focus on the Bible, but okay, and the church, but go for it. What you realize is that the Islam is an idea. It's a very, very misogynistic, very powerful idea. And your question of how is it so emboldened? How is it so powerful? How do they have so much control? Their business model is very, very, it's clever, but it's effective. It's very, very effective. Whereas with Christians, we genuinely believe in the one true God of the one true faith in the Trinity. So our message and mindset is love, truth, and light and justice. We don't play dirty. We literally can't play dirty. So it's not a fair fight. And now I didn't mean to get biblical, but the devil and
it happens.
Yeah, the devil, Satan, and our Lord in the desert, the temptation, etc. For everything holy, there is something unholy. So it's not a fair fight. But with Christians and those who decree and declare that Christ is Lord, we've got God on our side. So it's not a fair fight, but we've got God on our side. So it is problematic to talk about this and because it blurs between Islamism and the moderates. They're so dominant and controlling the black bloc, the hijab, the niqab, the dress code, the misogyny, the female genitalia mutilation, the FGM, the binning off of daughters as well. That's the conversation no one wants to have as well. They're only interested in breeding males. The up to, I think it's 4 wives, depending on which tribe you speak to, etc. So you got the breeding mindset, the culture mindset, which isn't just like in Christianity and for social conservatives, we believe in the patriarch. Yeah, of course. God, husband, wife, and kids. Absolutely, we believe in the patriarch. But there's no misogyny in Christianity. This is unbiblical. But in Islam, you got loads of your misogyny, you got loads of your breeding rates, you got loads of your multiple wives, you got loads of focusing on the sons, and they have cultural norms and values all copied and pasted from Catholicism, by the way. It wasn't copied and pasted from the Reformation and from the Protestant movement. It was copied and pasted from Catholicism. You've also got, you can't not talk about two-tier policing and two-tier justice, going back to your point. Clearly the law and justice, crime punishment is on their side. And we've seen that over and over again. And I'll give you 2 examples just off the top of my head. There's a lawyer called Ahmed Yaqub, and he makes these videos. His latest video is he's got a baseball bat and he's swinging it around and he's saying, for every offense, there's a defense. If you've got a baseball bat in your car, lads, make sure you've got the ball and the glove. Therefore, you're not going to get pinched for it. That's just one video. You know what he's saying, and you know what he's saying to his Pakistani brothers, etc., who think they're hard. Last year during the unrest, we've all seen the police liaison officer talk to the Islamists with the masks and the hammers and the weapons, and informing them to go and put them back down in the mosques. So when you say how do they have so much control? We know about their culture, their financing, their business models. We actually have to take a leaf out of their book in that regard as, again, not Christians, because we live in secular Britain, but we have to pick, don't we? Like, what's the plan? Where is the Christian financing? Why aren't we living together as Christians? Why are we so segregated and scattered? See, when they came over here, Dan, they stayed in their conclaves, they stayed in their tribes, and they said, we're not giving this up for anything. There's rubbish everywhere. We're going to make the locals feel really intimidated. Have you seen how they park their cars outside mosques on Fridays? I've studied it. I've done some exposés on it. It's carnage. They'll park wherever. They don't believe in our law. They don't believe in democracy. They don't care. Again, I'm talking about Islamists. They don't care about our way of life whatsoever. Again, that can be unpacked. So, two-tier justice, two-tier policing, breeding, culture, their doctrinal beliefs as well. And of course, you've got the misogynistic nature, and there are some real problems with regards to mindsets and attitudes towards women as well. If you put all that together, you're thinking that sounds pretty dominant and like something we can't control. It gets worse. And that's why I'm here today. All of them believe in the Islamic Caliphate, which is the religio and political spread of Islam. The religio and political spread. Should we talk about political apathy amongst us in Britain, Dan? Should we talk about boomer mindsets? Should we talk about liberal mindsets? Should we talk about how many people in Britain, concerned men, you and I, fathers, husbands, who are even a member of a political party, who even vote? The Islamists and the Muslims alike, controlled through the mosques and the imams, are told that if you want Islamic State here and therefore Sharia law and the persecution and obviously rape and murder of the infidel and the kuffar, that's our wives and girlfriends and sisters, by the way. Yeah, that's us, the kuffar, the infidel. If you want all this, guys, you need to take power politically. That's what they're, from the top down, from Mecca down, that's what they're told. And you'll hear all sorts about doing it peacefully, and you speak to the moderate Muslims and some of the moderate imams. I didn't say that wasn't the case. To do it peacefully, but we know there's a radical element to it. And that's why I do what I do. That's why we fight the way we fight. So at what point, Dan, going back to your point about the secular vote and the agnostic vote, at what point does every man in this country rise up and go, right, that's the model, that's what wins. We've got to put religion and politics back on the table, and you fight. It's called fighting fire with fire. Then you've got a chance, because at the moment we're fragmented, we're godless, we're not even members of political parties. We just take the next best thing that comes up. Oh, look, that looks shiny and new. We'll go with that, etc. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, no, you've unpacked that perfectly. For the listeners who'll be hearing that, and this gets sort of bandied about quite a lot. would one argue that that could potentially lead to civil war? Or are we heading in that direction regardless?
If you're talking about the rise of Christian nationalism, does the rise and success of Christian nationalism lead to civil war? No. So the model that I just explained, which is a whole great big area, by the way, so I've done the best I can, obviously in 5-10 minute format, but it's
a lot more intricacies, yeah.
Huge. The Islamic Caliphate, how this ends, because we are going to be successful, is Christian nationalism versus the Islamic Caliphate. So the order that I am giving as party leader and as the people's leader is no different from the peaceful side that the Muslims and the Islamists are given. It's not the radical side that the Muslims and the Islamists are given in terms of the order. It will only be the peaceful side, which is to take our country back and gain control once again of our political institutions peacefully through voting, through politics, through democracy. If you want your country back, it has to be taken back. I want control of the centre. I want Westminster. I want the Home Office. I want the civil service. I want control over our institutions, the police and the military. That's exactly. Imagine a chart. Christian nationalism's here and Islamic Caliphate's here. And it says Britain there. These guys and the pot of gold's there, the centre. These guys are cruising up here and we're down here. What's it going to take, Dan, to wake everyone up? You must put your name forward to stand as a candidate for UKIP because you must win in the general election in your constituency. And the party that wins the most amount of seats gets to form a government. You asked about civil war. There are incredibly bad, there are an awful lot of bad faith actors with very loud mouths who are very short-sighted, ill-disciplined, egomaniacs who think this can be won with our fists. A, that is illegal and immoral. B, that's never going to happen because we've fallen so far from grace. You and I both know people talk about men aren't men anymore. Mm-hmm. And C, with what army? With what weapons? We've been completely cucked by the government for so very long. Now let's go back to what I said about the PLO telling the young little Islamists, bless their little hearts, to go and put their hammer claws and bats and knives down back at the mosque because those areas are no-go zones, for example. So to those egomaniacs who say this only ends one-way civil war, I say to them, are you a member of a political party? They say no. No point. Do you vote? No. No point. Are you involved in politics and religion? No. No point. That mindset is prevalent in Britain, arguably. And it's my job to convert that mindset. It's my job to say to that individual, our enemies are doing the exact opposite of what you're saying and what you're doing. So not only is it a no to civil war, it is also there won't be a civil war. If there were, we probably wouldn't win. Let's look at the stats. They got 40,000 Islamists on MI5's terror watch list. Of the 3.9 million Muslims in Britain, 9% identify as jihadi. So you're talking about 40,000 Islamists on MI5's terror watch list. You do have to be quite a naughty boy to get on that list, by the way. You don't just have to walk the wrong way in Tesco's during lockdown with the little arrows which say which way you can and can't walk. You have to be quite a naughty boy. And then you got 9% of the 3.9 million Muslims that identify as jihadi, as in pro-Islamic State, pro-Hamas, with the fundamentalist and the little green headband with the little white writing and the little black block outfit. Oh yeah, we're talking about 400,000 soldiers of Islam. Never mind MI5's terror watch list. So no civil war. If it were to happen, we're in real trouble. And I think law enforcement and the state know that. It is illegal. It is immoral. The Islamic Caliphate is the spread of Islam, the religio and politico spread of Islam. Tell me why we can't do it with Christianity. Tell me why we can't take our institutions back, the Home Office, the civil service, our NHS, our schooling system, MI5, law enforcement, the police, the military. Tell me how we can't, why can't we take it back? Of course we can. The solution is political, the solution is peaceful, and I am your leader.
Sum that up beautifully, Nick. I think so as you were talking then, I was kind of getting into put myself in the mindset of maybe some of the listeners, those people who have become politically homeless, let's say. I think a lot of it probably boils down to, I think we touched on this off camera as well, is for many years, it was quite stagnant. People just weren't really interested in politics. Now it seems to be at the forefront of everyone's mindset. If you can I know there's a lot more intricacies, and I know we're limited on time. There's still quite a lot to unpack. But just if you could kind of explain it in layman's terms to the listeners, how a party like UKIP can, I know you've touched on it briefly with the seat scenario, but how politics works and how you get into a position of power is, I suppose, what I'm alluding to.
Yeah, sure. So let's just say that I got every man in the country, right? Let's say men became men again, and I got every man in the country, and I sat them down in a room, and I went, right, hi, my name's Nick. We live in a first past the post system. Who can tell me what that means? And half the men put their hand up, and the other half didn't. You've got to know what system we live in, Dan. A first past the post system in a constituency-based first past the post system democracy means that you as the candidate, already the mind's gone. Candidate? What do you mean candidate? For who? For what? What you mean me? What you mean me stand as a candidate? I'm just a bricklayer. I'm just a plumber. I'm just a lawyer. I'm just a doctor. No. Become a candidate in your constituency, win hearts and minds in that constituency through campaigning, and you win that seat in the general election. Then you put yourself, me, and now imagine the British Isles, the map, purple dots everywhere, on election night. Oh, wait, hang on a minute. They've won. They get to form a government. I go to King Charles, sit him down and go, listen, mate, which side are you playing for? Because you're pushing Islam. You're supposed to be defender of the faith. We have a little tete-a-tete. I tell him what's what. I get permission, taking it anyway, to form a government, and we crack on. Like Trump, the results and the political wins on the right, like ICE, we do that down in Britain. We have specialist departments of soldiers armed to begin mass deportations and re-migration. Now let's journey all the way back to that room full of men. Every single one of those guys, I'm not interested in the commies and the liberals and those suffering with narcissistic personality disorder. I'm not interested. We have no time left. Imagine those men going, so wait a minute, I can run my business. Let's take, I don't know, carpenter. I can run my business and I can stand to be a candidate. And I'm like, yes, let's call him Bill. I'm like, yes, Bill, that's correct. He said, well, how do I do that? Well, you've got to be a member of a party. So I joined UKIP then. Yes, ukip.org, become a member. And then once you've got your membership and your membership number, you then stand as a candidate. We interview you, we process you, we make sure you're not an extremist. I mean, this is obviously standard operating procedure. And then within a couple of months, Bill is the local representative for his area, and his area is out protesting against illegals being in our hotels, costing us £2 billion a year every week anyway. His lads are putting up the flags on the lamppost, Operation Raise the Colours, absolutely amazing. He's got his team delivering leaflets, UKIP leaflets, mass deportations, re-migration, take the country back, reinstate Christianity back and start a government. He's got his team out delivering leaflets. General election comes by in 4 years' time. Bill wins his seat. Bill is now stood in the House of Commons with me, if God wills it.
No, and it is that simple. I think that's the thing. The point people are missing, aren't they? Is they just assume that it's overly complicated to do what you've just described.
I can't do it. The wife won't like it. I'll lose my job. I can't be bothered. Where will I? I haven't got the time. Absolute nonsense. I am everyone's best friend, and I'm everyone's worst nightmare, because best friend is arm around the shoulder. I'm giving everyone the solution, but there's zero tolerance policy to non-compliance. We have no time left. So again, let's use Bill. Bill might go to the football. I don't care. I don't care about your football and your little fantasy football league thing that you do. I don't care. Our women and children are in danger. Now is the time to be eating red meat, no offense to the vegans, training in the gym, teaching your sons how to defend themselves, and making your wife, your spouse, your girlfriend, your intended, who you're engaged to, or if you're single, your future wife, something to be proud of by saying, we got it so very wrong. Oh, and by the way, we're back in church on Sunday, whether we like it or not, because we've understood the mission. It's the Islamic Caliphate versus Christian nationalism. See how easy it is, Dan? But I can't force Bill to give up. I love that there's probably a guy watching this called Bill who's like, why is he personally going?
I hope he's not a vegan as well, for the record.
Imagine if Bill's a vegan as well. I'd be like, grow up, Bill. So I just, it's so inspiring. It's so beautiful. And I love it so much, but there's a frustration there. And that's where the discipline comes in. And that's where the duty comes in. When you are in a leadership position, you're responsible for an awful lot, but you're also responsible for keeping yourself together and always educating and helping out those who want to know more. So there's zero tolerance policy to laziness, indifference, weakness, apathy. I'm not interested. I'll give you one more example, if I may.
Of course.
At the UKIP conference just recently, big guy, strapping, young man comes up to me, strong handshake. I'm loving every minute of this, by the way. And he goes, look, I can't. He's come to the conference, bless him. He's travelled from up north. Amazing. Look, I can't stand. And I'm not going to say his job title or the company he worked for. I knew the role, he told me his job title, and I knew the company. I know the company very well. I said to him, stand down. He said, I'm a member. I said, stand down. This isn't for you. Mm-hmm. You'll lose your job. Let's go back to Bill. Stand down. I'll lose my wife. Stand down. I'll lose my job. My order is stand down. Be a member. Promote online. Like, share, comment. Donate to the party. I can't not think of things. Go out and deliver leaflets. But protect your identity. Don't lose your job. Don't go to jail, and don't lose. Like you, a lot of men are married to lefty women, Dan, which they're now regretting. But it's a holy institution. A lot of her family are lefties, so he's looking at it now, going, "Oh no," because men are waking up to the trad life, and they want it because it's fueled with duty and honor and loyalty and discipline and reward. And it is what it is. Don't believe in divorce. It is what it is. So I can't be fairer or more vulnerable or transparent. I've literally just explained, like, all the people that are watching, it's about the practical application and the solutions and the how. Let's go back to Bill, the guy at conference. He's not called Bill. He told me the title. He told me the company. I said, stand down. You'll get fired. He said, shook my hand. God bless. We'll say no more about it. You're a member. You're doing your bit. Great. And then I said to him, if not you, who? Go and find someone who's going to be that community leader the work doesn't end now. Just because I've said stand down, the work doesn't end now. You've got to backfill that role. And imagine that mindset shift, Dan. Imagine that mindset shift in the UK. Find a candidate in your community who's going to win in the general election, and then the purple tidal wave is filled in the House of Commons, and we get to form a government and begin delivering on our policies and those missions.
Awesome. You mentioned there in relation to Donald Trump kind of having the blueprints, with mass deportations, immigration. So I suppose this is, you've been selling yourself all interview, but sort of upselling yourself. If you got into office, give us I'm sure that we could be here all day listing things, but certainly your top 5 things that you will put into action or attempt to put into action from day one.
Goodness me. So day one, okay, there's an awful lot to do. When you take office, you've got, and this bit is true of what the political rivals say, and you hear it a lot. When you take office, you've got all the nonsense that you've inherited and you've been left with. Right. We have to stop the rot. So we've worked out that it's about 75 billion. Obviously, you've got the huge amount of that is on your left, woke, diversity, inclusion, equality, net zero, blah, blah, blah. But then you've got the out-of-work migrants claiming welfare, and you've got the cost of the hotel invaders, 2 billion, housing the invaders in the hotels, 2 billion. So you've got to stop the rot. So that has to happen first and foremost. That doesn't create a win the next day, if that makes sense. So day one, you got to do lots of different things in terms of our priority list and our promise to the nation, but then it allows for further moving forward to execute, etc., further down the line. In terms of practical application, you've got to close the borders, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to close the borders. So that's what you do. You have to deploy the military into Britain. and you set up special
Sorry to interrupt, because I always want to know this. I'll bring you back on track after I've asked this. The military, why is that not being deployed already? Are they insinuating that they can't do it? What's the reasoning on that? Because Trump seems convinced that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, that's right. It is the only way to do it. So, let me come back to that. So, stop the rot. So that's all of the funding and financing it's not from the government, it's from the taxpayer. That's got to stop, because you're going to need all that money for the operation that we're about to describe and talk about. Close the borders, deploy the military into the channel. By definition of closing the borders and stopping the rot, everyone's going to be in a panic, and there's lots of people that are going to leave of their own volition. We'll pay some people to leave. We'll ask some people to leave. People will leave off their own volition. It'll be great. It'll work out. And then you'll have your hardcore lot that are going to batten down the hatches, and they're going to try and kill you when you come with the silver bracelets. You're going in the back of the truck, mate. They're going to try and kill you. So close the borders, stop the rot. All this needs to happen, etc. And then you need to deploy the military into Britain. So going back to your question about why don't they do that? Why don't they deploy the Navy into the Channel to intercept the boats? They don't. The government, the Tories, Labour, they haven't done it. They don't do it. They're not going to do it because they're in on it. They're in on it with the French government. Mm-hmm. State-sponsored terrorism. State-sponsored terrorism. That's the plan. And then people say, why would the government do that? Why did militias and governments arm the IRA? Why did the CIA do what they do in terms of proxy wars? Mm-hmm. Dealer's choice, depending on how deep down the rabbit holes, which is long form podcasting, special stuff. Let's talk about the Iranians and the Iraqis and Mossad and the Chinese, etc., etc. Why do all these people do these things? Why does the British government allow them? Why don't they deploy the military? Because they're in on it. Mm-hmm. Acts like a duck, walks like a duck, goes quack. It's a duck. Now, I don't want to segue to Calais, because I know I'd be surprised if you didn't bring up Northern France.
That's getting mentioned, yeah.
We're there, Dan. We're there with our activists. The police escort the migrants running through the fields and living in the huts. The British public doesn't holiday in Calais. They arrive in Calais to then go on holiday in other parts of France, like I did when I was a kid in the south. But they don't holiday in Calais. Calais is vast with the dunes and the forests and the woods. These traffickers, they know their layout. These migrants, we've tracked and traced them literally. They're not sprinting because it's too far, but they are running at a pace through the fields in northern France, into the dunes and the forests. It's all one and the same thing, etc. They're very specific paths that you'd have to know. They're all marked out. They're all mapped out. We found them. We confronted them. Now, on one of the evenings, the police, the gendarmes, we were in the car. They sped towards us, and they all got out of the car. They pulled their guns, and they started pointing at me and my 3-man team at the time in the car. 2 came round to I was in here, driver there, 2 at the back. 2 came round here, 2 came round there. Guns are out, but not pointing, ready to deploy. Windows down, tap on the window. I was wearing body armor, obviously. Reaches through, grabs hold of this, eyes pop out of his head, pulls his piece, sticks it right at my heart, and the other guys as well. And we were held for like an hour and a half. And then another evening, this is on the recent tour, we were held by the police for an hour and a half. They wanted we had about 20 activists. We had other French activists join us. We were just held, and we'd been tracking and tracing the migrants, and they just wandered off towards the beach whilst the police held us here. They just wandered off to the beach while it's nuts. So forgive me for the segues, but the British government is in on it. And then the question becomes why? Well, that's why I said what I said. Why do intelligence services and agencies do what they do? Why do kings and queens and governments and people in office do what they do? Well, a lot of the time it's corruption. It's handouts, it's payouts, it's lining of the pockets. A lot of it's hatred, evil. Look at Marxism. Look at Marxist leaders. Look at communism, for example. A lot of it's just evil, demonic. Again, if you're of the Christian worldview, for example. A lot of people talk about New World Order and the globalist New World Order and the overlords. Well, that's corruption, isn't it? Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, illegal immigration was just as bad under the Tories. So in terms of the why, I've answered it, but I don't want to get sucked into it, because the fact is it's happening and we've got to stop it. And the way we stop it is by taking power. But to see the invasion up close and personal is terrifying, because they're 90% fighting age males and they're coming from Islamic State countries. And we know that because when they're running past us and we're walking alongside them at 3:00 in the morning, and this is all available online, kid comes running past, inshallah. We know where they're coming from. They're fighting age males. Why on earth aren't the French police arresting them? Why aren't they detaining them? I mean, it's all available on my X for your viewers and for social media. It's all across UKIP socials. We're confronting the police. Why aren't you arresting them? No. We no talk. Why is this happening? Why aren't you arresting? We find them. The British government can find them. Why isn't the British military deployed into the Channel? Why isn't the British military in northern France right now? Why aren't we sanction France as a bare minimum? Sanction France. Dan, we pay them. We pay them hundreds of millions of our money to stop the traffickers from sending them over. I've been over, I've done 2 tours, and we're going to keep going back. They're not stopping them. They're enabling them. They're facilitating them.
Yeah, it's when you hear it from first-hand experience or seeing it, because obviously you document it very well on social media, it is frightening, because obviously, and also as well, let's bring it back home, is these terrorist attacks, you know, you wake up every day, it's every other day something is happening across the country now, whether it's stabbings, whether it's grooming gangs, whether it's whatever it is. And we've got to a point now where we're actually acclimatized. I know that's a really despicable thing to say, but it doesn't shock me anymore. It does, it pisses me off, but it doesn't shock me anymore when I wake up to see such and such a things happen now. I just want to go into that, because you mentioned they're essentially being held at gunpoint. Obviously, Charlie Kirk got assassinated this year. Incredibly sad, big loss. I mean, whether you was a fan of Charlie Kirk or not, I think he stood for intellect. He stood for, obviously, man of the cloth as well. And a big loss to society, whatever your political beliefs are. I know the left can't stand him, but that's on them. Do you ever fear? I know America's a bit more wild west, shall we say, but still, we get stabbings over here. Guns are easy accessible over here. Someone like yourself, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier on, but do you fear, with what you're doing, you can potentially ruffle a lot of left-wing feathers? So do you ever fear for your safety, for your life?
Yeah, every day. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So so it's very simple. We're at war. And a lot of people, they want that unpacked. And I just don't understand the mindset. What do you mean unpacked? You know, we're at war. Our institutions have been captured. It's called the Long March through the institutions. It's the communist plot. Our institutions have been captured. Our government, our liberal elite government, are incredibly corrupt. And there's an awful lot of deviance and perversion and drugs involved as well. If you know what you know about Westminster, for example, I'm not comfortable with these people running us, etc. When we say we're at war, we mean it. The Islamic Caliphate, communists, Marxists trying to trans our kids in schools, the defunding of Christianity, the denigrating of Christianity, and the entire funding or allocation of and promotion and provision of going towards specifically Islam, typically throughout each year, etc. You know, we're at war. It's a Christian country. We want our country back. No one voted for mass uncontrolled legal immigration, let alone illegal immigration, which is cultural suicide. It's absolute nonsense. It's exhausting. You said yourself, it really hits you, doesn't it? It's exhausting. We're so very tired of the fatigue. You know, we are 100%. You'd have to have your head so far up where the sun doesn't shine to not realize that we are in dire straits and that we're at war, you know, and that's why the fight back is now. That's why we've got to do what we've got to do now. There's no hours left. There's no daylight left. There's no grains of sand left in the hourglass. We've got to do something now. Threat to life, don't care. Dot on the back of your head, don't care. And this is coming from someone who aspires to have a marriage and children and probably a dog. I don't care. What are we as men if we don't? It's right there in front of us. It's so plain and obvious to see. And we're not, go back to my example of the guy who came up to me at conference. I know he's going to lose his job if he gets further involved. He really wanted to be a candidate. I said, stand down. I need 650 candidates, Dan. 650 out of the fighting age males, Christian or otherwise, in Britain. It's a tiny, tiny percentage. What defines us as men, Dan? You mentioned your opening quote about the good times, weak times, strong men, etc. Everyone loves that. I first saw that about 5 years ago, but it's not a new quote. But does it shift the needle? It really does. It is our duty to stand up, as on Sunday we will remember our glorious dead. But not only that, in honor of our glorious dead, not only for our wives and for our children and to be respected, but like, where's our self-esteem? It is, if someone was to say we're not at war and they didn't get it, right, ignore that. We are so plainly at war. It started out as a cultural war. Now it's a spiritual war. This is the 9th crusade. There's nothing left. I've outlined it quite clearly. You'd have to be blind. You'd have to be living indoors in your own little weird bubble to not realize that our institutions and government have been captured. We've also got this thing called testosterone. Where are we, Dan? Who doesn't want to fight for their country? Who doesn't want to fight to have the respect of their wife, of their girlfriend, of their fiance, of their mother and father? You know, this is our duty. We're men. We're not here to be liked. We're here to be respected. You mentioned Charlie, God rest his soul. It's impacted myself, and as you know, I have the honor of serving as Turning Point's Chief Operations Officer under our fantastic CEO, Jack Ross. It's hit us so very hard. Charlie was not a tough guy. He wasn't a violent man. He spent his life transforming lives through debate, logic, and reason, and he's been murdered in an incredibly brutal way, and in a specific way as well. I.e., doing what with a freedom t-shirt, doing what he loves doing, winning hearts and minds through debate. And he's been taken from us in the way that he's been taken. What was his crime?
That was just being intelligence. One would say logic, common sense,
logic,
rational
reason,
thought,
rationale. Like what was his crime? Yes, there's a red dot on my head. You got the communists, the Islamists. You've got law enforcement, the intelligence services, random psychopaths, lone wolf psychopaths, those who are jealous, those who are envious. This is not difficult to explain. Am I worried? Is it a reality? Yes. Am I worried? No. Everything I'm doing is for the glory of God. So let's go back to that question about secular mindset, secular voters, liberal agnostic voters. Maybe if we were all more God-fearing, maybe we'd all find the testicular fortitude and the courage to fight this battle. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, I got told off, obviously, until now, I don't announce who my guests are when they're coming on. But a lot of people, I put a poll out asking for who should I get on. And your name cropped up quite a lot, which was also then followed by comments replying to people, he's too controversial. Now, I don't mind saying this on camera. You don't strike me as someone who has controversial beliefs. And I'll probably get a lot of stick for that. You just strike me as someone who loves his country, is a man of the cloth, is very patriotic, and is someone who's willing to fight the good fight to get our country back. Now, if that's controversial or far-right fuggery, then they've obviously created a new definition for those words. But you just strike me as someone who is very strong-willed, good work ethic, articulates perfectly, and is willing to take a chance and drive your mission forward. So again, like I said at the start, you can only credit you in that sense, Nick. So tip my hat off to you there. A couple of things I want to ask you before we kind of come to a bit of a close is you've mentioned a few times in relation to the left, or the new phrase, the woke left. What do you think of these people as a collective? I know that's an open-ended question, but what do you think? For me, they are more dangerous than some of the radical Islamists because they're allowing this to happen. The straw-manning people, the straw-manning agendas, the gaslighting. I'll leave it over to you to articulate better.
Yeah, gaslighting is a good word. They're liars and deceivers. Mm-hmm. So in 2020, Boris Johnson put us all into lockdown. It's interesting, isn't it? Our Prime Minister put us into lockdown. So our Prime Minister had the power to put us into lockdown. So if you've got power, you can do whatever you want. And there's me saying, let's take our country back. And people are like, no, I don't want to get involved in politics. And I don't want to become a member of a party. And I don't want to stand for office. Cool. 2020, we were put into lockdown. We're never going to forget that, right? Like, we're never going to forget that. They closed the gyms. Why would you close down health and fitness but keep the McDonald's drive-thru open? Blue skies, do you remember that from March? All for months, just blue skies, etc., etc. And Turning Point pops up on my screen with its graphic campaign. BLM rioting and burning down cities, and the situation in Portland, and the situation in Bristol here with Avon and Somerset Police. So you got Turning Point Graphics unpacking far left totalitarian propaganda via Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Charlie Kirk, and other individuals. And on the other side of the news, BLM burning down towns and cities, wearing black bloc, tearing down statues in Britain, getting away with it. Avon and Somerset Police were ordered to stand down with regards to that mob, that militia mob, tearing down the Colston statue. It's a statue. Yeah, it's called history. And they were allowed to tear it down. And then that distance from the Colston plinth to where they dropped it in the estuary, that's a really long way. And that's a really heavy, big statue. And Avon Somerset Police were told, look, just marshal them. And we don't want any unrest. We don't want to inflame community tensions. Just let them get on with it. Masked militia mobs, vigilantes, 100% comes under violent disorder, which is 5 years maximum sentence. They love stinging the Patriots with that. No, it's good. And then four of them got charged, the Colston, the Bristol 4 or whatever, and they all got off on Mickey Mouse charges anyway, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm watching this. Gym's shut, not allowed to go to work. I'm going to get into debt, but they offered me a bounce back loan. That's good of them because I really do want to pay interest. That's a Christian virtue, paying interest. No, it's not at all. Turning Point Graphics and BLM and sort of far left totalitarian propaganda, etc. Relationships breaking down everywhere. Husbands and wives falling out. Families falling out. You had Greta Thunberg popping up all the time with her nonsense and her madness and her delirium and her narcissism, etc., etc. Nothing about Israel-Palestine, though, at that time, etc., etc. So when you say, what do I think about the new modern woke left? In 2019, I had my education from a red brick uni about realism, radicalism, Marxism, and liberalism. That was my speciality, is what I studied in international relations theory. I always kept my eye on politics, always been a blue-blooded, socially conservative right-winger, Christian nationalist. But in 2020, I saw the Marxists trying to trans our kids in schools through the Turning Point graphics, through the videos, through the exposés. Turning Point also runs something called Education Watch List. So if you didn't support BLM, or if you called a man dressed up as a woman, if you misgendered them, that was a crime or a non-crime hate crime. So you see where I'm going with this, and for your audience. So this is all building up, but it wasn't there in 2019. If you were me and you were earning a crust and trying to get on with your life and you didn't have kids in schools, you would be oblivious. You wouldn't really know. I was also attacked by a group of rabid Marxists who were all females in a pub. They assaulted me. They were abusive. They picked up my pint. They threw it. They didn't like it. I wasn't anyone yet, by the way, Dan. I didn't join Turning Point until 2021. It was just an argument that happened. They accused me of cultural appropriation because I said something about one of the girls that she reminded me of someone. They said that's cultural appropriation. They attacked me. Rabid Marxists. What? We're having a drink. It was a Saturday afternoon. So there were loads of things that happened to me in circa 20 that wasn't there before. So whatever happened in 2020 happened. And if you go back to my missions that I was describing earlier on, the first one I called out, educate on the problems and issues with regards to what it sounds like when you hear it and when you're being exposed to it, far left totalitarian propaganda. Because you've hit the nail on the head. The woke left are liars and deceivers. Let's take the case of their campaigning for illegal immigration. I haven't yet done a debate with someone like Narinder Kaur, for example, or any one of them. I don't know, Jeremy Vine, any one of them. They would shut me down immediately and say, you just called them illegal migrants or illegal invaders. That makes you a racist. Just see how clever they are. They don't see them as illegal. They're fleeing war, and we have to give them refuge, sanctuary. And then I would say, cool, let's talk about the long list of migrant terrorism in Britain. Let's talk about the migrant terrorism. Let's talk about the invader terrorism, because they're two separate categories. And they would say, white people kill as well. So clever, isn't it? And then I would say, cool. So we could have prevented those lives being taken if we had control over our borders sensible foreign policy issues like don't destabilize the Middle East. I'm not insensitive to that. Obviously, that's the Christian worldview as well. There is only just war theory and no other war theory. So we can agree on that. If I was to say to that, let's have control over our borders and let's stop people dying. The two Jewish guys at the synagogue a few weeks ago, the guy that did that, he was British, right? So he's homegrown. So you've got homegrown problems, or maybe he was a migrant, but you've got homegrown problems, you've got migrant problems, and then you've got illegal migrant, invader problems, haven't you? You've got three different categories. If I was to say, why don't we get control of what we can control, the homegrown stuff, save lives, and that might mean closing the borders, for example, mass deportations, you can agree with that. That person would then turn around to me, going back to far left totalitarian propaganda, and say, you're a white supremacist, racist bigot who hates refugees. See how clever that is? They won't reason. They won't accept my hand that's extended. So you said it was an open-ended question, but I'm kind of glad you brought it up. We're taking our country back. Go back to 2020. I was told I couldn't go to work. I'm seeing the turning point graphics. I'm seeing what far left totalitarian propaganda looks like when it's deconstructed. Women can become men and men become women. If you're a man and you're wearing a dress, you've got mental health problems, mate. You're odd. And no, it's not okay. It's not diverse. It's odd and you're weird and you've got mental health problems and you need to get help. So let's look at the timeline from 2020, where I'm at now as party leader. I've seen and heard enough. And as you rightly said earlier on, I'm at street level all the time. I'm in Calais watching the invasion happening. We're taking our country back. No diplomacy and no surrender. Radical trans lobby, Marxist BLM, wearing black bloc, tearing cities down, communists in our institutions, liberal perverts and degenerates. We're taking it all back, Dan. What do I think of the woke left mob? I'm not interested in their vote. I'm not interested in them accepting my handshake. We're taking it back. That's it.
Fantastic. I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, the whole LGBT. I'm sure we could, and I'm sure you could dissect that for another hour or two. You've referenced the totalitarian state. Obviously, I'm keen to get your opinion on this. There's a big push and propaganda for digital ID. What is your overarch on that?
Massive big fat no to digital ID. Massive big fat no. So one thing I do want to get very clear on this, here's me saying we all need to become political activists. I'm your leader. You've all got to pick a side. You've all got to become political activists. I'm your leader. Once that happens, there is a consequence of that, Dan. And that consequence is that people tend to pick their campaigns. They pick their poison. Now, there's a movement out there called the Truther movement or the Freedom movement. These are the people that the hill when you become a campaigner, there's a hill you die on. Everyone knows that. The hill that these people die on is that they want Nuremberg 2.0 for what people did during COVID lockdowns, right? They want The Hague for those responsible. It's very unlikely that this is ever going to happen. I'm not insensitive to their plight and their campaign, and we all know that it was a fairly satanic period, whatever your opinion, whatever your perspective. But it's not a campaign that I'm going to campaign for, as in the hill that I die on. Now, here's where it gets really sticky. It's a big fat no to digital ID. Full stop, yeah? That's it. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. Can we stop big tech? Can we stop AI? Can we stop digital ID? Now, let's think about that. As a man, duty bound, I'm concerned with what I can control versus what I can't control. When we're in power, digital ID and all social credit scoring systems like what the CCP use, all of that will go. But I can't stop what Labour are going to do. I can't stop if, God forbid, God doesn't will us in 4 years' time, and it takes more time than that, which is possible. God forbid we have more of the same, whether that's blue or red, for example. Digital ID will be pushed through. It's not just by the reds. The blues will do it as well. It's a big fat no to digital ID. But if you got all the men in Britain and said, digital ID, 50% who identify as socially conservative would be for it, Dan. Mm-hmm. They would. And if you ask the same question about AI, they'd be for it because they're getting rich off of it. They've got tech jobs. And they're like, well, yeah, no, it's cool because obviously it's making things easier and quicker or whatever. I'll give you the example. I was coming through, where was I? Prague the other day at the airport, and there were these machines on the side, and everyone, rather than just go through, you know, when you do your security passport check thing, rather than go through, everyone just automatically queued up at these machines, but it was on an angle. It was here. And there were no signs or stickers on the floor. Everyone just did it. And it's the retina with the fingerprints. So we did all that, and then we all went through to the security. So I got one of the guys and I said, why have we just done that if we're going to do the security thing? And he said, well, it's digital ID. So now I'm in Prague, but that information has now gone to a central database, which means if you're wanted in Germany, Poland, Italy, France, Spain, you'll be detained and they know who you are. So let's think about that. Do I care that that system exists? Not really. Do I want it in existence? Not really. If it helps catch people, the bad guys, great. So let's look at it then. Is it going to stop illegal immigration? No. How's it going to stop illegal immigration? Is it going to stop traffickers? The worst in society, human traffickers, people trafficking, the drug dealers, the cartels, the murderers, the rapists? No, it's not. And that's where I loop back round to digital ID gets a big fat no. We've got bigger problems to worry about than lockdown, Nuremberg trials, COVID vaccine, death trials, digital ID, the freedom, truth, the movement. The globalist elite is going to do whatever it wants, Dan. Does that make sense? Yeah. They're going to do, we're just men. If you're of the faith, there are some things that are literally down to God that we can't control. But yes, big fat no to digital ID. But I think, in fairness, I have reasoned it out with those liberal voters who might genuinely be on the fence about voting for me and for UKIP. Actually, I'm not insensitive to them saying it's really not a problem. They're less skeptical about the government. I'm far more skeptical. The whole thing's getting scrapped. And the reason why, and that's where you win the hearts and minds, is explaining why. It's not going to be used for the illegals. It's not going to be used for the criminals. It's not going to be used for the drug dealers and the scumbags and the rapists and the murderers. It's going to be used for us. Mm-hmm. It's going to be used to control us. So that's my final word on it. It's got to go because I know that it's a state tool.
Okay. Nick, it's been a powerful conversation. Before we wrap up, I just want to give you credit again. I've been blowing smoke up your backside this entire interview, I guess. I'm sure the comments will highlight that. But one thing I want to just credit you on as well is the fact that you've took time out of your very demanding schedule to come and do this. You probably want... I've reached out to quite a lot of politicians, both left, right, central, and I get replies from the right. Usually they're too busy. I generally don't get anything from the left, or no, they're not taking part. And I think, referencing Donald Trump doing the blueprint for his campaign, I think going on all the podcast tours that he did, it served him. I mean, I personally thought Trump won after the assassination attempt. I think that shot of him shouting fight in front of the Star Spangled Banner, you got my vote just off that, and I'm not even American. But I think the podcast tour definitely did help him because it humanized him. And even though, you are talking of a political wheelhouse throughout this discussion, you have been humanized. And I've seen you on other podcasts, and you do demonstrate your patriotism and the fact that, you're a fighting British man who wants his country back. And that is very apparent. So thank you, first and foremost, for agreeing to come on. Thank you for your time. The last thing would be, obviously, I would have asked you how people can sign up, but you've kind of highlighted that throughout the entire interview. What's something, I don't know if you can give much away, but what's a few things that you've got lined up? Obviously, I know you keep referencing we're out of time. I agree with that. What can people do now? Obviously, sign up, but what can people do? The stage is yours.
Wow. Thank you so much for that opportunity and for this opportunity as well. I just want to add, I'm not surprised to hear that you don't get responses back from the left. What have they got? We've kind of summarized it. What have they got to hide?
Well, I don't get it because I remain very impartial. So if people want to know my political stance, I probably am centre-right. But during an interview on camera, I've tried to give you for...
Yeah, what you've done is ask questions. So why would they turn that opportunity down? Mm-hmm. Why do the left insist on wearing, whether they're leaders, whether they're in the unions, whether they're activists, why got to cover the face? Always go on the offensive. Never allow yourself to be on the back foot. Never put yourself in vulnerable, out of uncontrolled environments. It's telling, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I think, I've tried not to discredit the centre ground, in the liberal centre ground in Britain. What I have done is said, I'm not asking anymore. I'm just taking it. The people need leadership. What we lack on the right in Britain is a single unit point of command on the socially conservative Christian right. That takes 6 seconds to say that. And I've said it. It's not other politicians that have said it. I have said it. We do not have that, and that is what we need. So it's not a hatred or a disdain for the centre ground or the liberals or people that use terms like centre right down. It's not that. It's we're taking our country back. We are at war, and desperate times call for desperate measures. The unthinkable in Britain must be achieved. And I'm saying to the people, the excuse or the saying of I've got no one to vote for, well, that's no longer true because you're going to have a UKIP representative in your area because in a first past the post system, someone's got to step up, and I've laboured on that very heavily. And if no one does step up to become a UKIP candidate in your area, you're not going to have a UKIP candidate to vote for. So whether you are male, female, young or old, if you can stand for the party, you need to go to ukip.org today. You need to sign up as a member because you can't stand as a candidate unless you're a member, obviously. You need to spend the £30 a year to be a member of a political party, which is pretty much uniform across the parties. And once you get your membership confirmed, you need to apply to become a candidate in your area. Then the party, myself and the team, will give you all the tools, instruction, coaching, and mentoring for you to become a fully fledged activist, campaigner, and politician in your area who is going to stand up for the values, corrections, adjustments, whatever's required. Maybe it's to do with illegals in hotels, for example. Maybe it's godlessness. Maybe it's the defunding of Christianity. Maybe it's social services, adult social care. Whatever your campaign is and whatever's relevant to the people local to you, we will give you everything you need to win in your seat at the general election. But you cannot do that unless you are subscribed to UKIP, ukip.org, become a member, and then once you are a member, you stand to be a candidate. Once you have passed the interview process and you have been greenlit to become a candidate, you are then the community leader in that area, in your constituency, who is going to be given everything by the party to become a local champion, local hero, no doubt a bit of a local celebrity, a candidate, a prospective parliamentary candidate, a PPC, or what we call community leader, who is going to be revered by that community and by your constituents, regardless of the size of the constituency, because you stood up. You stood up and said, I am going to do exactly what the Islamic Caliphate is doing, and I am going to provide, based on our missions and the policies in our manifesto. These people could be agnostics, Dan. They could be atheists. They don't have to be practicing devout Christians. They've said, I've understood the mission. That is to win this seat because we're going to conduct mass deportations and remigration. And if one person does that in one seat and another person does that in another seat and another seat and another seat, we have a shot at delivering justice to the British people, to our most marginalised and betrayed communities, and to our girls as well. It really is as straightforward as that. This all ends when indifference, apathy, weakness, when this ends, this all ends. And what's the opposite of weakness, indifference, and apathy and gluttony? What's the difference? Getting up, fighting, knowing your duty, taking lead, taking charge, realizing your full potential, realizing that there is still hope. And that's my mission, is to inspire the nation that if you want your country back, you're going to have to take it back.
Powerful stuff, Nick. All the links to what Nick's referenced there will be in the description. So it couldn't be easier for you. You don't even have to type it in. Just go to the description of this video or audio link. Nick, obviously, I know you've just highlighted there how people can join. Is there any other messages that you want to deliver, obviously, to the audience, or anything that you want people to keep tabs on, be aware of, support you in other aspects?
Obviously, we've got a campaign in northern France, and that campaign is based on the will of the Patriots. So if the Patriots want us in northern France, putting pressure on the French and the British government, this is an example of where we say pressure, groups, movements, activism, lobbying works because it's done behind a political party. How many groups are there now out there? How many activist organizations, movements, etc.? You get a banner and a Facebook page and 10,000 people, and you think that you're the leader of the new right. It's not behind a political party, guys. It's only going to go so far. Yes, you've offered sanctuary for your demographic, and yes, you're campaigning. That's all a massive thumbs up from me. But we've got no time left, and we've got to take our country back. So if you want me and my team in northern France doing activism, you're not sponsoring random activists going out there and having a jolly. It's really, really hard work, and I'm getting a gun
held at gunpoint. Yeah.
I'm getting a gun pointed at my heart. Wait, what? If the Patriots want that, then you got to fund it. Mm-hmm. And we've got our fundraiser. It's slathered across our social media and on the website as well. Listen, usual stuff. If 10,000 people put a quid in, if you lose a quid, generally speaking, still a lot of money to people that are on the streets. I'm not insensitive to that at all. But if 10,000 people put a quid in, then we can maybe take a few more guys out there, because we're going to keep going back. But of course, this is something that we need. We need tremendous support on our campaign in northern France, because groups and movements that aren't associated to, part of, or affiliated with a political party, there's a glass ceiling that you're going to hit ever so quickly. Once you're done with the clashes over money, and once you're done with the structure, and once you're done with the egomaniacs, you're going to realize it's not behind a political party, i.e. there's no discipline. And these movements, you watch them, they fall apart one at a time. Great idea, sanctuary for the demographics, and you're so outraged you want to do something. Big thumbs up from me, but you haven't understood the mission. You've got to get behind a political party. The work we're doing in northern France is behind a political party. Not to mention the fact that when I get a gun pointed at my chest and I'm with my team and I explain to them who I am and I say, you want to holster that sidearm right now, mate, you don't want to be killing me. Trust me, you do not want this problem. We keep people safe. We keep our activists safe. We're professional trained activists, but it's behind a political party. So pressure, groups, movements, great. Grow up. It's time to pick a side. You've got to pick a political party, and you've got to go all in with that. Help us, support us in northern France. Pressurize the British and the French government when we go out there and we expose the lies, the corruption, the hypocrisy, and the deceit, and we make them look very silly. This puts pressure, going back to pressure applied via a political party and not just a group of concerned citizens. It puts pressure on the French and the British government to say, these guys are causing a problem now. We don't want them exposing this. We really don't want them running around Calais filming this. It's all available online. Please, 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 the Patriots, support us. Support UKIP's mission in northern France. And of course, my final message, if it's time to close, is regardless of whether you are agnostic, atheist, secular, whether you're devout, regardless of which religion you are, frankly, if people don't understand the mission at this point, I don't think there's any hope for them. I really don't, going back to the fact that it's the clear and present dangers are so obvious and in front of our very faces. But to those who have understood the mission, you've understood that this is the Ninth Crusade. We started out as a culture war down. It's a holy war now. And to fight a holy war, you need an ideological crusade. This is, be you secular, agnostic, atheist, be under no illusion. This is the Ninth Crusade. And I say we fight it with all of our might, and we do so for the glory of God.
No, I keep using this phrase, powerful, but to reiterate it, re-emphasize it, I think there's a lot of noise, people saying, oh, we want to fight, we want to take our country back, we want to do X, Y, Z, and it's all well and good posting it online, but as you've pointed out, if you're not backing a political party, it's kind of very much diluted. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Just to reiterate again, thanks so much for your time. You're a great bloke, and I don't see any ounce of controversy at all. I mean, I don't get fazed by much these days. Certainly with all the phrases, racist, Nazi, far right, it's lost all meaning, which is a shame because they are quite poignant meanings in the correct articulation. But it's been a pleasure speaking to you, mate. I've took a great deal away from it. You've empowered me this evening, so thank you for that. Obviously, all the links to Nick's social media handles and the UKIP, how you can become a member and join, everything will be in the links below. I've, of course, been Daniel Hodges. This has been the incredible Nick Tenconi. You've been listening to the Hodge-Cast. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we believe you can definitely take something away from today's guest. We couldn't attract guests such as this without a solid fan base. The best way we can grow this is through subscriptions. So, if you haven't already done so, can I please ask you hit that subscribe button and help us continue to put out content for you all to enjoy. Until next time.